Jake here for American Trucks, and today I've got this Rough Country 2.5-inch leveling lift kit with the lifted N3 struts for 2007 to 2018 Silverado 1500s. If you've got an 07 to 18 Silverado 1500 and you're looking to add some height, get a more aggressive stance, or fit some larger tires for a budget-friendly price tag, then this kit from Rough Country might just be what you're looking for. Now, before we dive in, I'd like to make a quick note that this kit is compatible with Silverado 1500s that run the stock cast steel or cast aluminum control arms. Now, Rough Country also says that this will fit your truck if you have stamped steel control arms. However, those trucks are going to require a little bit of disassembly, so you're going to want to have access to a spring compressor, but more on install in a couple of minutes. So again, this is a 2.5-inch lift and leveling kit. So what you're getting is that true 2.5 inches of lift up front and about a 2-inch lift in the back. So you're getting additional height both front and rear, but the kit will also level out the stance of the truck, eliminating that slight forward rake that most Silverados have from the factory. You're getting that nice aggressive stance that's still going to be easy to drive and live with daily. And it also means extra ground clearance for off-roading and the ability to fit up to 33-inch tires. Now, to achieve that lift up front, you get a set of Rough Country's lifted N3 struts and a set of strut spacers. Now, the struts are really the star of the show here, and as you can see, they come fully assembled right out of the box, so all you need to do is bolt them in. The N3 shocks that are in here are nitrogen charged, and they feature infinitely variable damping, so it's going to give you a smooth, almost stock ride quality. But they are also designed specifically for lifted applications, so the damping is set up for that too. It's tuned to keep the ride smooth out on the road while doing a good job of absorbing impacts and controlling rebound out on the trail. The bodies of the shocks, as you can see, have this massive 1 3/8-inch bore and a hardened chrome piston rod, which you can't see because it's obscured by this. So these are going to stand up well to the elements too. Now, that nitrogen charge inside the shock also helps with heat dissipation. So even under aggressive off-roading conditions, if you're hitting a bunch of bumps in really quick succession, these aren't going to suffer from fade. So that means you can use them to their full extent without worrying about fade or losing control of your truck. Now, the other piece of the front end lift are these strut spacers that are going to insert right at the top of the struts as you bolt them in. Now, the spacers themselves, as you can see, are pretty small. They only measure about 1/4 inch in physical height, but they're going to combine with the struts to give you that full 2.5 inches of lift in the front end. Now, out back, we have a familiar block style lift. You get 2 blocks, obviously, one for each side, that are going to replace the stock 1-inch blocks, and they measure a true 2 inches in height. Now, these are fabricated blocks as opposed to cast ones, so they're going to stand up to the elements, they're going to be less susceptible to damage, and therefore offer a longer lifespan than cast blocks. So they're durable and they're functional all in one. You also get new U-bolts for the rear that's going to help accommodate these larger blocks and keep everything nice and tight. Now, of course, we need to talk about price. Coming in around $500 for what you're getting, I would say this is pretty reasonable, considering especially that the struts are included and all assembled, plus you get everything you need to bolt these in, including the new U-bolts. I think this represents pretty good value for your money. It's a great way to get that lift that you're looking for without spending a ton, and you're getting everything you need again to get this installed, including all new hardware, and it'll just be a bolt in and head on down the trail. Now, speaking of install, this kit does come in at a 3 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and you should plan on it taking about 6 hours to get installed. Now, in most cases, it doesn't require any specialty tools, but like I alluded to earlier, if your truck has those stamped steel control arms, you're going to need access to a spring compressor. However, this is still something you can certainly do at home. It is a bit of an involved job since you're moving around some suspension components, so professional installation is always an option if you are not comfortable with this sort of work. But in the event that you would like to do this yourself, you absolutely can. One thing I will note though is that once you've got everything in and buttoned up, giving it a day or two to settle, make sure you get your truck in alignment so you make sure it's tracking straight and smooth down the road and down the trail. And with that, let's head to the install bay now, where one of our pros will show you how to get this installed on your Silverado. Tools used in this install include an impact wrench, a ratchet, a 10, 15, 17, 21, and 22 millimeter socket, a 14, 15, 17, and 21 millimeter wrench, a 15 and 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench, an Allen key, clip removal tool, a hammer, and a torque wrench. Hey everybody, today I'm going to be showing you how to install this Rough Country lift kit on our 2014 Silverado. Now, before we get started, a couple things to note. As you've probably already noticed, the truck is up in the air and I've gone ahead and pulled all 4 of the wheels off. I've also removed our spare tire for this just because we want to have a little bit of additional room to show you guys what we're going to be doing underneath of the truck. Now, before we get into the install and the fun part, we're going to show you a couple of clips on how to uninstall the front struts and the rear blocks and U-bolts, because those are the things that we're going to be replacing. Now, you will notice too that the uninstall footage of this is performed on the driver's side of the truck, whereas we're going to be installing our new strut and filming that on the passenger side. However, the process for both is the same, so you're just going to want to repeat the same thing on the other side of the truck. With that, let's go ahead and show you this uninstall clips, and then we're going to get into the install process.
All right, let's kick off the uninstall here. The first thing we want to do is remove the brake line brackets and the ABS line brackets so that when everything's loose and at full slack or full droop, it's not putting pressure on these lines. There's a 10 millimeter right here and a 10 millimeter right there. So grab your 10 socket and get those 2 off. Now what I like to do, just so we don't lose the bolt, is just thread it on a couple of threads right back in the hole while the bracket's loose. That way we know where it is. Same thing back here. Take that bracket off. I'm just gonna lightly thread it back in, just like that. All right, next up, we're gonna loosen up the top nut for our sway bar end link. In order to do that, however, just because there's not a whole lot of room to work with, I'm gonna put a 15 millimeter wrench on the nut on top and use my 15 deep socket on the bolt going through the bottom, and that'll loosen it up. And just like that. Now you don't have to take the entire end link straight down, just wanna grab that nut off the top, and if you can, take the bushing off as well, and just set those aside. All right, next up, we're gonna loosen up and remove our tie rod end. Grab your 21 millimeter deep socket and get that guy off. All right, now something to keep in mind here is that if you take this off, then this whole thing's gonna start moving. What I'm actually gonna do now that it's loose is just put the tie rod end back in and just put this in a couple of threads. We're gonna want this to be pretty stable for the rest of the uninstall, at least up until the point of the upper control arm coming off, so let's just keep that there for now. Next, we're gonna be loosening up and removing the nut on the bottom of our upper control arm where the ball joint connects to the hub here. Now, in order to do that, you're gonna grab an 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench. That's at least what I recommend because there's not a lot of room here. And this is where we want the stability of the tie rod end because we don't want this thing moving back and forth. So let's crack this guy loose. All right, now once this is loose, what we're gonna do is take the nut completely off and then thread it back in a couple of threads. All right, so it's on a couple of threads there. Now we can grab a hammer and start tapping on the side to dislodge the ball joint. There it is. So now that we have everything loose, let's take our tie rod end completely off. I'm just gonna put this nut back on so we don't lose it. Now we can swivel this guy out. We're gonna push down and remove the nut here. Okay, once this nut is off, I'm gonna set that guy aside. This upper control arm is gonna pop out, so you just wanna be there to support it. Make sure the lines are out of the way, and now that's free. Now we wanna remove the 2 bottom strut bolts, they're 17 millimeters. Keep in mind, once these 2 guys come out, the entire lower control arm is gonna drop down, so just watch your head. The next step here is to remove the top 3 nuts. They're 18 millimeters, and then the entire strut will come out. Before we can do that, grab a panel removal tool or something similar. There are these little clips holding onto the front stud, and then the one closest to the front of the vehicle here on our driver's side. Just gonna pop those guys off. Same thing on the opposite side as well. So once you have those off, grab an 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench and get those 3 off. Okay, once you have all 3 off, the strut will drop down and you can take it off. Okay, set it aside. Now when it comes to the uninstall, you can repeat that exact same process on the other side.
All right, now that we've got our stock strut pulled out of here, we're gonna go ahead and get this new one in. But before we do that, we do have one little spacer to put on the top of this. Now this might prove a little bit finicky because they can only go on one way, so it might take a little bit of trial and error on your part to figure it out. I know it did for me. So just go ahead and get that on. You're gonna wanna have the solid side facing up. So just go ahead and get that on. Slide right down, and then we're ready to put this into the truck. All right, now we're ready to put the new strut into the truck. And one thing you want to make sure of is that the top, the spring perch here, is going to be facing out. It almost directly aligns with this stud at the top here. So just make sure that it comes out because that's the only way that it's going to be oriented properly. The other thing too is that Rough Country does give you new top nuts for the strut in the kit. So make sure you've got those ready and handy. You're going to want to get at least one of them done when you go to put it in the truck. All right, now we're going to go ahead and fit this into the truck. Now, you may find that you have to do a little bit of finagling to get things in. I did end up having to move and lower my floor jack a little bit just to get enough clearance. And watch out for that tie rod end because it's always in the way. Go ahead and get that lined up right there. You should be able to get that kind of set into place. And I'm gonna go ahead and take the nuts for the top and just get them started. I'm not gonna tighten them down because I found the trick with doing these is leave everything kind of loose at first, and once you've got everything aligned properly, then we go ahead and tighten everything down properly. All right, once you've got those started, go ahead and make sure the bottom is aligned, and we'll go ahead and put in those two bottom bolts. All right, next we're gonna go ahead and get the lower strut bolts started. Now, while you can reuse the ones that come from the factory, Rough Country does include brand new ones in the kit. So we're gonna use those, especially because they've got this nice little nylock nut on the bottom. So we're gonna go ahead and take the nuts off here. We're just gonna go and try and get these bolts fed through. This might take a little bit of finagling to get them where they need to be. So just have a bit of patience as you get them through. Once you've got them in on the bottom, we're gonna go ahead and get those nuts started. But again, we're leaving them loose. We're not gonna tighten them yet. Just get them fed on a couple of threads. We'll come back and tighten these later. All right, next we're gonna go ahead and get our knuckle reattached. All right, next I'm gonna go ahead and reinsert the tie rod. So I went and took the nut off the bottom there. I'm just gonna feed that right back through where it came from. Now I do have my floor jack here supporting this control arm and the knuckle because we don't want all of the weight to hang just on that axle. So once I've got that nice and tight, next I'm gonna go ahead and get my upper ball joint back on. All right, now that we've got the tie rod end done, we have a little bit more support on the knuckle. I also went ahead and moved my floor jack over to support a little further up on the lower control arm, and I've jacked this up to take the weight off of the knuckle so that I'm able to move this and start getting the upper ball joint into position. Now, this is a part where it may be helpful to have another set of hands with you because you're gonna wanna hold this and get that shaft as far down as you possibly can. Take that nut and get it started. Get it on as far as you can by hand. We're gonna come back and tighten this shortly. All right, once that's on, we're gonna get ready to start tightening some things down. First, I'm going to end up lowering my floor jack, take that weight off the lower control arm. Now that we've got our ball joint ready to go. All right, next, before we start tightening anything up, I'm gonna go ahead and put our sway bar bushing back in here, or the end link bushing rather. I'm gonna use pry bar because this is a little tight. Just get those holes aligned. Once I've got that done, I'm gonna take the big bolt. Remember, the nut goes on the top here with the bushing, and the bolt end goes on the bottom. So we're gonna go ahead and feed that up right through there. Bushing is gonna sit just like this. And we'll get that nut started on the top. And again, we're gonna tighten this up a little bit later once we've got some other things nice and tightened up. Next, we're gonna go back to that ball joint and the tie rod end, and we're gonna tighten those bolts down. Next, we're gonna go ahead and tighten up those bolts at the bottom of the strut. Now these new bolts, they are 14 millimeter on top, and the nut on the bottom is a 15 millimeter. So I'm just gonna go ahead, put my wrench on the top here, go ahead and get that started on the bottom. Get my wrench set up on the top here and tighten it down. Okay, once you've got that nice and tight, go ahead and do the same thing on the other side of it. Now they are going to fight you a little bit because they do have that nylock portion on the bottom of the nut. Once you got them nice and tight, you're going to go on and start tightening some other stuff up. All right, next I'm going to go ahead and tighten these nuts on the top of the strut up. Probably get these most of the way down by hand at this point. And these are a 15 millimeter. So I'm going to take my 15 millimeter ratcheting wrench. Once I've got them pretty much hand tight, just going to put it on there and crank them down. And be careful not to over torque these or over tighten them because you might snap that stud off otherwise. Next, we're gonna go ahead and get our ball joint and tie rod end tightened up. All right, next I'm gonna go ahead and tighten down the bolt on the bottom of the tie rod end. This again is a 21 millimeter bolt. I'm just gonna go ahead, get that where it needs to be. Snug it up. I brought my trusty friend, the floor jack, back over here to support the lower control arm because I wanted to take a little bit of tension off of this upper control arm and the ball joint so I could get this tightened up. So now that I've got a little bit of pressure relieved here, I'm gonna go ahead and take my 18 millimeter ratcheting wrench and my Allen key and get those put on here. We're gonna go ahead and tighten this down. So again, the Allen key is just to hold that center post in place so it doesn't spin. That way we can actually get that nut tightened up. So once we've got them on, so I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this down. You should see the knuckles start to come back up and close that gap there. And get that snugged up. Go ahead and take care of our end link, and that should be about the last thing we have to tighten up here. Now, something that certainly can happen with this install is this wire right here can get caught underneath of your upper control arm. Now, if you realize that midway through tightening that ball joint like I just did, there is a way to fix it. So up here, we're gonna undo this connector. We're gonna pull this off of its spot right there. Just gonna push that tab and pull it out. Right here, you can take a small flathead screwdriver and just work this little clip free. This is sort of one of those one-way clips. You can pull this out. Once you've got that done, bring it back over top because that's where it needs to live later. Make sure you've got enough slack in your cable here for that bracket. And then we're just gonna put this right back in. The groove goes right in there. We'll just clip it back. Make sure you clip that back into place, and then you can set it right back where it needs to be, and you're ready to go again. All right, next we're gonna go ahead and tighten up our end link for the sway bar here. So I'm gonna take my 15 millimeter wrench, put that right on top. I'm gonna take my impact gun and put that on the bolt side on the bottom here. All right, and the last thing we have to do is these two bolts here to reattach our brackets. So I'm just gonna undo that right here. Get it started by hand. Same thing up here. Make sure the hole's lined up. Tighten that down. Once you got this started, I'm just gonna take my gun, tighten it right down. Once you've got that done, you're gonna wanna go ahead and make sure that everything here is tightened down, everything that you've touched. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now off camera. And once you're done with that, you're gonna wanna repeat this same process for the strut on the other side.
Moving on to the rear, the first thing I want to mention here is to properly support your rear axle. Now, because we're using a lift and we're up in the air, I have two pole jacks, one on each side, close to the bottom of the shock there. Now, if you're working on the ground, you want to make sure you're using a hydraulic jack, in which case you can put it right underneath the rear diff. If you have a couple of them, you can go on both sides, but the rear diff will be sufficient. At this point, everything you do to one side, you simultaneously want to do to the other. So once you have the weight taken off with it jacked up on both sides, again, we're using the pole jacks, we're going to start by removing the bottom shock bolt. But once you remove that, same thing on the other side, and then we'll get to the U-bolts. For this, I'm going to grab my 21 millimeter deep socket on my impact gun. I'm using air, but you can use a regular cordless impact if you need to, or a ratchet. I'm going to put my 21 millimeter wrench on the bolt head and take this guy off. Now, if your bolt is tight, you want to jack up just to take the pressure off of that guy and then start working it off. All right, do the same thing on the other side. All right, next up, again, it's very crucial that you have the weight supported underneath. Again, I'm using pole jacks. This is the absolute part where you need that to happen. You're gonna use your 21 deep socket, and we're gonna start removing the bolts on the U-bolts underneath where that cradle is. So we're gonna start taking these guys off. Now, one thing I would recommend is loosen them all the way to where they're just hand tight and you can pop them off by hand, because this guy's gonna start to drop off. So you don't wanna hit all four and then it just fall to the ground. I just like to leave the nuts on a couple of threads so we can easily catch it. I'll just put this guy back on a couple of threads and then just work my way around. Okay, so now we can start taking these guys off. And once you get to the last one, this cradle's gonna come with it, so just pull that guy off with it. Next, we can lift up the factory U-bolts because we'll be replacing them. They're not gonna be long enough for the lifted application. Pull those guys out and set those aside. Now, before we start lowering this side down to replace the factory lift block, we're gonna repeat the exact same thing on the other side, and then we'll start swapping them out. All right, from here you can slowly and carefully start lowering these guys down. I recommend lowering them simultaneously, but you can go one after the next. Just make sure you're doing a little bit at a time until it's loose enough to get it out. Now, before moving any further, I did throw a pole jack underneath of our drive shaft just to add some support to it. It starts to slouch backward. I started to put a pole jack there and jacked it up just to support that drive shaft so it doesn't tilt backward. At this point, we can start continuing moving downward. Now, we're already pretty loose. I'm just gonna go a little bit more on both sides. All right, at that point, you can go in, grab that factory block, and slide that guy out. Set that aside, repeat on the other side, and we're good to move on. Just to give us a little bit more slack on the rear axle, I'm gonna remove the 13mm bolt on the frame here, holding up our e-brake cables. That way, there's not a lot of tension being put on it. Grab a 13 socket and get that guy off. Once that's off, just lift up that hook from the frame, and now this guy's loose.
Now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the back of the truck. Now, hopefully you guys watched that uninstall footage, but if you need to take a peek at it again, go ahead and do that. So we're gonna be replacing our rear lift blocks. So these are the stock ones that I got here in my hand on this side, and these are the ones that we're gonna be installing for the kit. Now you'll notice, of course, that these are a little bit different in size and a little bit different in orientation. This has a slight taper to it. That taper is gonna be put towards the front of the truck, and this little tab down here is gonna go down on top of the axle, just like the one that we took off of the truck. Now again, we've got new U-bolts and new fasteners for this as well, so make sure you've got them at the ready, because when you do one side, you kind of want to do the other pretty much simultaneously. And again, make sure you've got your axle nice and well supported. So with that, let's go ahead and get into this. All right, so now that we've got our stock block out, we're gonna go ahead and put that new one in. Again, make sure that the slightly tapered end is gonna face toward the front of the truck. We're gonna go ahead and put this, just start by getting that centered right there on our axle. Make sure this is pretty much straight. And then what we're gonna do is make sure that this is aligned. We're just gonna jack up the axle. You're gonna wanna do this but if you're using two pole jacks, you're gonna wanna do this pretty much simultaneously. If you've got a hydraulic jack, this should go pretty much in one shot. We're gonna make sure we get that tab on the bottom of the leaf spring aligned with the block. You'll feel it drop in. Now I've got my other one already set and ready to go. So once that's in, we're gonna go ahead and put the new U-bolts on. All right, now that we've got that block in, we're gonna go ahead and put the new U-bolts on. So these are gonna go in exactly the same place as your stock ones. You'll see the little divots up here for them at the top of the leaf spring. Once you've got them set into place, we are gonna be reusing that stock bracket. So this, of course, is gonna go right under here. It may take a little finagling, but once you've got that on, we're gonna go ahead and put on the new washers and nuts that are included in the kit. I would recommend not having all of them in your hand at one time like I do right now. Now, because these bolts have a bit of a finish on them, this may take a little bit of trial and error to get these started properly. So definitely start these by hand, because otherwise you will cross thread them. So I'm gonna get two of these started now. One in either corner, just to keep that bracket up where I need it. Now, a little trick I found over the years is, if you're trying to get something seated properly like this and it's not going, you can always start it in reverse. you'll feel the threads kind of seat where they need to be. Like this one is not gonna go. You'll feel it and you'll often hear it too, a little click. Once that goes, you can just go ahead, get those tightened. Now once you've got them on there, we're just gonna go ahead and torque these down to spec. Now unlike when I took these off, I'm using a ratchet on this, and then I'm gonna go ahead and use a torque wrench to torque them down. Because these have a nylock piece in here on these nuts, I don't wanna just ugga-dugga them all the way down. So this will take a little bit more time. That's okay, we're just gonna tighten them up. I'm kind of working my way around here, sort of like you do when you're tightening a wheel down. Try and keep this bracket nice and even. All right, once you've got these all tightened down, you're gonna go ahead and repeat that same process on the other side of the truck. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and torque these nuts on the bottom of the U-bolts, these ones that we just put on. Now these are a little bit different than most normal torque specs. These are gonna be torqued to 56 foot-pounds on our first pass, and then 130 degrees past that. So what we're gonna do is do all 4 in one shot, get them to 56 foot-pounds, and then we're gonna go back and pull them 130 degrees past where they are. Now, if you don't have an angle torque wrench, like I don't right here, you can just eyeball this. So we'll go ahead first, get them to that 56 foot-pounds. Okay, now we've got all 4 to there. We're gonna go back on our second pass. You're gonna feel that click. Pull them about 130 degrees past. You are gonna have to fight through this a little bit. If you've got a cheater bar or a longer torque wrench or one of those angle torque wrenches, you can do that. I'm pulling these over about to the brakes. Again, you can just sort of eyeball this. It doesn't have to be exactly 130 degrees. Do our last one. Just like that. And if you haven't done this on the other side yet, go ahead and do that. All right, now that we've gone ahead and done up the U-bolts and the nuts on the other side of the truck, since we're already over here, we're just gonna start with this shock because we do have to do up these lower shock bolts. So we're gonna take our stock bolts here, and I'm gonna use these transmission jacks here to my advantage. So I'm just gonna kind of crank these up carefully. Get the hole on the bottom of the shock aligned. Now you are gonna have to do this because remember, we've lowered this in order to raise the truck up. Once we've got them kind of lined up, we're gonna take our bolt. Bolt's gonna come through from the center of the truck, just like that. You're gonna wanna do the same thing on the other side, then we're gonna tighten and torque this to spec. I'm just gonna go take our ratchet here, tighten this down most of the way. Then I'm gonna go ahead and put my torque wrench on this. We got our torque wrench set for 85. Get on here. And this is a little bit cumbersome. Got a second set of hands. That's where you want to employ them. All right, once we've got this torqued, we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the other shock on the other side of the truck. All right, and that should have everything buttoned up back here. So once we're done with that, I'm gonna go ahead, lower my pole jacks out of the way, let the suspension take the full weight of the axle. Once I've got these clear, I'm gonna go ahead, lower the truck down, put the wheels back on, and we're all done. That's gonna wrap it up here for our review and install of the Rough Country 2.5-inch leveling lift kit with the lifted N3 struts, fitting 2007 to 2018 Silverado 1500s with stock cast steel or cast aluminum control arms. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, for all things Silverado, be sure to keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.